Hi, and welcome to Thanks Again Podcast, episode 16, Hollow Knight. I decided to pick another game. And of all games, Hollow Knight seemed like a good idea because it's a good game. And I'm slightly being critical. It's a really good game to the point where it's a classic. It's one of those, it's a Metroidvania where you can get lost in it. It takes a long time to get through this game. Um, it's animated. Not like Cuphead, but the animation is charming. You play as a little bug, and he has his little sword, and he runs around and he attacks other little bugs who are causing trouble in the kingdom, which is some underground dirt hovel that looks like it has a gothic sense to it. What I'm being critical of is the story of Hollow Knight. The story of Hollow Knight is straightforward, where I'm gonna read through it in a second for help. But from my memory, there. And by the way, this is the type of game that has multiple endings. But there's someone who rules the kingdom, and taking that position sort of warps and changes them to be a type of dark Dracula character. And then it's a whole new set of problems within the kingdom. But if someone who's strong enough comes along, they can overthrow that person in power and rule fairly. But once you get to it, spoilers, a curse may take over. It's that kind of game where it's, in a way, they're saying the Invisible Man. And I keep saying or it's Orwell. No, I keep saying Orson Welles, and it's Orwell. One's a director, the other guy wrote books. Orwell wrote a lot of literary classics, like The Time Machine. if I'm not mistaken, War of the Worlds, The Invisible Man, and Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And in The Invisible Man, in that story, it was absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that's basically what's happening with Hollow Knight. I'm gonna read through it though, but my criticism of it is that it's one of those type of video games where it's a long game and you could run through and just beat bosses and not know what's happening at all. And then you get to the end and there's another big boss. It's a lot like the Dark Souls game. The story is, if you're not paying attention, the story is cast aside pretty much for the gameplay. But the gameplay is so amazing, it's challenging. It's one of those things. But that's what was on my mind about talking about video games. I'm curious if the video game industry spends as much time crafting the stories as the film industry. Or if they if they often rely on the gameplay. So, also Silksong came out finally. Not finally, but I'm glad it's around. Team Cherry did a great job. Okay, at the outset, the player-controlled insectoid warrior arrives in Dirtmouth, a quiet town. This is just above the remains of the kingdom of Hallownest. As the protagonist ventures through the ruins, they learn that Hallownest, I just started reading and I'm lost. I just started reading and I'm lost. It's not it's like 5 paragraphs. It's not that much. I should be I zoned out. Okay, let me try one more time. At the outset, the player-controlled insectoid warrior arrives in Dirtmouth, a quiet town. This is just above the remains of the kingdom of Hallownest. Okay, so what they're saying is, you're a lone warrior that just made it in town. A little town that's fresh and has got people in it that can welcome you. Little bugs. Everyone's a little bug in this. They've got people that can welcome a stranger in a little town. that sits above the kingdom of Hallownest. So it's an anthill below, which means mazes. The remains, though. So someone destroyed it. As the protagonist ventures through the ruins, they learn that Hallownest was once a flourishing kingdom of insects, which fell after becoming overrun with the infection, a supernatural disease that can infect anyone by entering the subject's dreams and controlling their minds and wills. So, a dream parasite, which is a little bit clever. I don't know. Sometimes when an animal dies or is half dead, the bugs will get to it first. If it's just on the road half dead through exhaustion, the animals are knocked out cold, and then the bugs will show up and just go to town eating. And they'll feast on the brain, and then you think they'd wake up, but if you're passed out. I tried to save a possum like that once, and they said, no, this guy's gone. He fell out of a tree or something. The leg will be kicking and whatnot. So I think this might be what they're joking about. They enter the subject's dreams, the little bug, parasite, infection. It's also Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's a bit of a horror story. It's gothic horror. So after that, it can control is zombie plague. It can control your mind and will. You fall asleep, you get infected. You wake up, it can control what you do. The infection gives the subjects heightened strength, but at a cost of their civility, causing madness and undeath. Zombie plague. Hallownest ruler, the Pale King, had previously attempted to lock away the infection in the Temple of the Black Egg. Despite the temple's magical seals, the disease managed to escape, and Hallownest fell into ruin. So the person in charge tried to quarantine. They tried to quarantine the zombie plague in the Temple of the Black Egg. Probably a church. Despite the temple's magical seals, the disease managed to escape. And Hallownest fell into ruin. The protagonist's mission is to find and kill 3 bugs called the Dreamer's Monomon, the Teacher, Lucrian the Watcher, and Hera the Beast. who act as the living seals on the temple door. Once the seals have been removed, the player can confront the source of the infection. This protagonist frequently encounters Hornet, the daughter of the Pale King, and Hera, who tests the protagonist's combat prowess in several battles. Okay, that might be Silksong. Yep. Okay, so let me get this straight. There's a zombie plague, and they tried to lock it up in a temple. But zombie plagues are rough. So the zombie plague escapes. It's just like Resident Evil almost, or I don't know, any zombie story. Despite the temple's magical seals, the disease managed to escape. Now, what's kind of creative here is it seems like zombie Dracula. The protagonist's mission is to find and kill 3 bugs who act as living seals on the temple's door. Okay, so Zombie the Pale King attempted to fix this. Who's holding the infection? Once the seals have been removed, the player may confront the source of the infection. This protagonist frequently encounters Hornet, the daughter of the Pale King, and Hera, who test the protagonist's confidence. So Hera the Beast needs to be defeated, and the daughter of the king runs around fighting to do the same thing as this little knight. The daughter of the king is trying to fix the kingdom too, all by herself. That's Silksong. That's Hornet. They don't mention, not yet, I guess, who. Through dialogue with non-player characters, environmental imagery, and writing scattered throughout Hallownest, the protagonist learns the origin of the infection. In ancient times, a tribe of moths that lived in Hallownest worshipped the Radiance. A primordial being who could control the minds of other bugs. Okay, so this is a problem that has been built. the radiance showed up in Hollow's nest, and the moths just hung out with it. When the Pale King arrived at Hollowness from afar, he used his powers to give sapience and knowledge to the creatures of the realm. I don't know what sapience means. Hold on. Sustenance, I bet. Sapience is defined as the capacity for high-level wisdom, deep understanding, and sound judgment, often distinguishing human intelligence from mere insect. The Turing test. The capacity for high-level wisdom. The capacity for high-level wisdom. That's what I need. I need more sapience in my life. The capacity high-level wisdom, deep understanding, and sound judgment to make the right call. That leads to peace and wisdom. Now, who wanted that? Okay, so the Pale King, the guy in charge right now, has it. Those are his powers. He can make you wise. A SWAT. He can make you wise and give you the capacity for knowledge. So he can smarten up the kingdom. The ruler was what they're saying. The ruler of the kingdom can smarten everybody up. The moths also began to worship the king. Purposely betraying the radiance by wiping her from the collective memory. Wait, what? The moths also began to worship the king. Okay, so the moths are a mess. The moths worship the radiance, which is an infection. They worship the radiance, which was an old mind control bug. And then they marched right into the king, right over to the king, and started hanging out. Purposely betraying the radiance by wiping her from collective memory. That's neat. Beneath the notice of the Pale King, the moths also began to worship the king, purposely betraying the radiance by wiping her from their collective memory. So the worst that there's a tug of war. And they picked wisdom. The moths. That's charming. The little moths one side there's mind control, and the other side there's someone offering wisdom. The capacity for wisdom. And the little mouse drew to the king, the guy offering wisdom. Some worship of the radiance continued, allowing her to remain alive inside the dream realm. It's to be expected. That's the other thing about Hollow Knight. It's a relaxing game. The soundtrack alone is what people put on to study and whatnot, or fall asleep. There's lo-fi beats. Hollowness prospered until the radiance began appearing in the dreams of its people. Poisoning their minds with the infection. In an attempt to contain the menace, the Pale King used an ancient living substance called Void to create the vessels. Creatures with no free will or ability to dream that were immune to the infection. This is what I mean. Thinking of Hollow Knight. Thinking of Hollow Knight, you end up running around defeating enemies and whatnot. Story unfolds, and I have to crawl through this to understand what's happening. I'm gonna take 5. I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna hit the pause button. Okay, I'm back. I think it's neat that there's one creature doing mind control, and the other one offers wisdom, and they break out of the mind control. But it seems like she's a character that's been defeated. It says allowing her to remain alive inside the dream realm. I mean, she's a Freddy Krueger. Hollowness prospered until the radiance began appearing in the dreams of its people. poisoning their minds with the infection. In an attempt to contain the menace, the Pale King used an ancient living substance called the Void to create the vessels. Now, to say void, it sums up a image of dead space, a void, nothingness. So he created a potion to wipe their minds, so he wouldn't have to work so hard as hell. He used an ancient living substance called Void to create the vessels, creatures who know with no free will or ability to dream, that were immune to the infection. So he needed some soldiers that could stand up to the radiance, it sounds like. The Pale King chose a vessel known as Hollow Knight. For creatures with no free will and ability to dream, that were immune to affection. Now they're being meta. He's got no free will and you're controlling him. The Pale King chose a vessel known as Hollow Knight to trap the radiance within itself. Ow. Leaving the remaining failures locked in a pit called the Abyss. I don't understand. So there's a being, so they didn't banish it. There's a being called the Radiance, and they put it to sleep, is what it sounds like. So little Hollow Knight trapped the radiance within itself. Which is interesting. So I guess the other vessels were cast away. We only need a Hollow Knight. A pit called the Abyss. However, the Hollow Knight accidentally had an idea instilled during its upbringing, possibly related to his close bond with the king, causing it to be an imperfect vessel and the radiance to eventually break out. It put something to sleep and it woke up eventually. which is what happened. So little Hollow Knight cares about the king. He spent too much time with him, causing him to be an imperfect vessel. And the Radiance too. So they're blaming Hollow Knight. They're saying if you were more pure and empty, that thing wouldn't have been able to wake up ever again. Throughout the game, it is revealed that the protagonist was a vessel who managed to escape the abyss. They gradually defeat the dreamers and their guardians, removing the seals on the door. Inside, they encounter and battle with the infected Hollow Knight. So it's that nursery rhyme. I'm sleepy. Roll over. So they all rolled over and one fell out. Now there's 9 in the bed. And the next one said, roll over. I'm tired. So they all rolled over and one fell out. Now there's 8 in the bed, and the next one said, roll over. I'm tired. So they all rolled over and fell out. There's 7 in the bed, and the next one said, roll over. I'm tired. So they all rolled over and one fell out. 6 in the bed, and the next one said, roll over. I'm tired. So they all rolled over and one fell out. Now there's 5 in the bed, and the next one said, roll over. I'm tired. So they all rolled over and one fell out, and there's 4 in the bed, and the next one said, roll over. I'm tired. So they all rolled over and one fell out, and there's 3 in the bed, and the next one said, roll over. I'm tired. So they all rolled over and one fell out, and there's 2 in the bed, and the next one said, I forgot how it ends. Also, I don't think that's what happens here. Throughout the game, it's revealed that the protagonist was a vessel who managed to escape the abyss. Not the Hollow Knight that hung out with the king. They gradually defeat the dreamers and their guardians. So some folks are asleep and getting infected. Oh yeah, those three. There's three dreamers that need to be taken down. Removing the seals on the door. Inside they encounter and battle with the infected Hollow Knight. Holy cow. No, that's good storytelling. I've played this game. I don't remember any of this. They picked Hollow Knight, and Hollow Knight was chummy with the king. He's like, "You're the best of us. Go get him. I'm gonna cast all these other idiots into the void." And then the kingdom's a mess, still. And then you play one of those Hollow Knights that was thrown away. If the protagonist defeats the Hollow Knight alone, they take the Hollow Knight's place, sealing the infection within their own body, and then sealing themselves in the Temple of the Black Egg. So it's a sacrifice thing. So it is rollover. They restore peace to the land and hold the poison until it gets to be too much again. And then another little bug will show up to try and beat the last bug, Hollow Knight. That's tragic. The protagonist can alternatively descend to the abyss and remember its origins as a vessel. In doing so, Hornet will intervene during the battle against the Hollow Knight and expose a crack on its mask. Here, 2 additional endings will be unlocked. Okay, that was one ending. Here's the other 2. If the protagonist defeats the Hollow Knight with Hornet's assistance, the protagonist seals themselves, the infection, and Hornet inside the Temple of the Black Egg, with the seal bearing an image of Hornet's mask. So you find a friend. If you go emo, she shows up to save you and you battle together. The protagonist can enter the Hollow Knight's dream realm through the exposed point and directly battle the Radiants. That's the good ending. During the battle, the Void is presented underneath the arena and attempts to capture the Radiants. The void is present underneath the arena and attempts to capture the radiance. The void. The void was like a potion. Defeating the radiance allows the void to surround and destroy the radiance permanently. Hornet then awakens to find both the protagonist and the Temple of the Black Egg have disappeared, leaving nothing behind except the protagonist's broken mask. Okay, that sounds like another type of sacrifice mission where everyone got destroyed. The Grim Troop expansion. The Godmaster expansion. I'm going to read this real fast. In the second expansion to Hollow Knight, a Nightmare Lantern was added to the Howling Cliffs area. After striking a mass bug with the Dream Nail, the lantern summons a mysterious group of circus performers to Dirt Mount by identifying themselves as the Grim Troop. Okay, that's the story. What a neat story. Um, well, I had a moment to think. Um, there's a kingdom, a zombie plague, and a villain, apparently, who's willing to zombie everyone and send them to Dreamland off to death. And a king willing to offer wisdom to keep everybody busy and alive. He creates, seeing that people are getting hurt fighting this thing, he creates soldiers that don't dream. They don't dream, so they don't have to be worried about it. creatures with no free will or ability to dream that were immune to the infection. They have no free will. They're a type of zombie, I guess, but they're soldiers basically. So, um, he creates one knight, and the knight has a close relationship to the king. It's kind of funny. So this knight's solution with the king is to take this poison and hold it. I don't know what to do with it. I'm just gonna hold it in this room, and then everybody else will be okay. And then another little, that's, I don't know. And then another little bug comes along, which is who you play. And this empty vessel, you control it. The character itself looks like his eyes are hollowed out, like he's a skull. An empty vessel is like walking bones. You create a skeleton warrior. What does Silksong look like? She can't possibly be dead. Hollow Knight seems like he's a dead character. He's not alive. Hornet doesn't look alive either. This is interesting. I've had a long day. I'm gonna pack it up and think about this overnight and come back to this one. Because it's a zombie story. It's good zombies versus bad zombies. I've never heard of that before. All right, it's charming. It's Hollow Knight. I'll be back. I'm saying that as if I'm broadcasting. This is the podcast. So that's a break. I'll be back. On the other anyway. I took about a day off from the essay. I was recording last night, and then I'm back the following afternoon. I thought about it a bunch last night. Thoughts on Hollow Knight, and it seems like. Hold on, let me look it up. It seems like the story is about how the I'm not sure how to phrase it. Um, During COVID, there were essential workers. There were the people who, while everyone was told to stay at home at one point, people wanted to order food. They wanted their mail. If they had an emergency, they wanted the hospital. And those food service jobs can sometimes be looked down on as if, I don't know, it's the service industry. So in this story, you have a knight, a knight that gets along with the king, and a villain that uh, destroys people's dreams and turns them into their dream. And you have a knight that was friendly with the king that was sent to go stop the villain. And the powers used are the king uses wisdom. He's able to grant wisdom upon people and educate and enlighten. And the influence of the enemy turns everyone into a type of zombie. Now, the knight sent so what I understand is that in order to combat that type of enemy, and I'm thinking, the king had to create soldiers that were hollow, that didn't dream, and would not be influenced. They did what they were told, and they wouldn't be influenced by the villain. So, one step further, what's interesting about this story is that Hollow Knight looks dead. He looks like the husk of a dead bug. And Silksong looks the same way. So that's the king's daughter. So this is, not only is this some gothic story of where the entire kingdom died and they're doing their best. I'm not sure if they're dead, if everyone's dead. I'm gonna look at some of these pictures. But he sent a knight that was hollow inside, which literally means empty. It looks like some of these bugs are alive. So the king's daughter died. So the king really cares about what's going to happen here. So he creates a bunch of soldiers, empty soldiers, which are dead soldiers apparently, to combat this villain that lives in the dream space. That is influencing people in his space. And he decides to get close to one of them. And that influence kind of ruins it. So because when he goes to combat the villain, and he's not an empty vessel. He cares about the king. So his solution is he's got wisdom, compassion, or something's going on. And his solution is to hug the villain. Is to lock away in a chamber and hug the villain until, I don't know, the kingdom gets healed. If they can just contain the problem, the zombie plague, if they can contain it, then problem solved. And he basically sacrifices himself. But what happens is it still leaks out and starts infecting the kingdom. And then, so seeing that he had one soldier and the soldier fixed it, all the other knights get thrown away into the abyss. But the problem creeps back in. So that's where you, the player, show up. You control one of these thrown away soldiers who's an empty vessel, and you tell him what to do. And the game is, what did I say yesterday? It's charming. It really is charming. That it's like you're doing a partnership with this story. That you're telling the soldier of the story what to do. It's you and this Hollow Knight running off to defeat the bad guy. So the Hollow Knight, what he decides to do is fight his way to open that door that was shut. And then deal with whatever was behind it. Which is the villain, the Radiance. After that, this is the point where I got to last night. The story could mean one thing, but there's all this other information, and it could point to the idea that is talking about even the smallest, most insignificant person can affect change in the kingdom. It's saying that you matter. But there's all this other information. There's stuff like the princess has died. Uh, there's the idea that in one of the endings, he sees the problem at the end and decides to go back to the abyss and lay down with the rest of his soldiers, his fellow soldiers. And then the princess shows up and picks him up, and they go fight and stay in the chamber. And then there's the last ending, where he fights and defeats the Radiants. He fights and defeats the Radiants, and then Silksong shows up. The princess shows up, and she finds just his cracked helmet. I lit a match. Type of candle. I'm gonna hit pause button.